Hello everybody. These book videos don't tend to do very well, but this is the field that I am planning on going into outside of ASMR, so you kind of have to deal with the bookish content. It makes me happy and it's easy to film. But today, I am filming this in May, but you probably won't be seeing this until like mid-June, I think. So it's not really authentically, it hasn't been 6 months yet, but both of my current reads I am not very far into, and I'm a very slow reader, so I have faith that I will not be finishing either of them come middle of June, so I'm filming this now. But I'm doing a little reading check-in of what I have read in the past 5 months, because it's been a lot, surprisingly. I'm going to start with my personal reading goal. My goal for 2025 was to finish reading Bridgerton and to read the rest of S.E. Hinton's works. S.E. Hinton wrote The Outsiders, which is my favorite book of all time. Originally I wasn't counting Taming the Star Runner, but I think I am now, just so I can say that I've read all of her works. But I don't have a physical copy of that yet, and I have not read it yet. S.E. Hinton, that goal, made excellent progress in. Bridgerton, not so much. But in my defense, Bridgerton is a long series. Each book is around 400 pages each, and I have had other novels to read because of class, which are also included in this video. But I think because the pile is so small, I'm going to start with Bridgerton. I am not reading these in publication order. If I were, this would have been the first one I read back last year. But I am going in order of who my favorite Bridgerton sibling is, which also accidentally is just their birth order. So like I started with Anthony, and then I read Benedict. Both of those books I loved so much. Colin and Penelope's book was third for me. Looking back on it now, I enjoyed it, but I did kind of struggle to like finish it in the end. I think because I had got into Bridgerton by watching the Netflix series back last year. So their season is the latest one aside from Benedict's, which I think they're currently filming. Or like it's not scheduled to come out until like well after this point of filming. So I think it's because their season was just so fresh in my mind that I might have disliked it a little bit. But fourth was technically the first book in the series, The Duke and I, Daphne's story. This is Daphne. This is the Duke, Simon, and I am annotating this series. I think I gave this like a 4.5 out of 5. All of the other ones, the 3 previous ones I read, were all 5s. I did also struggle with this one towards the end, probably because, again, their season is like so fresh in my mind, but this is also so far the one that's closest to the source material, the book. Netflix adapted it into a show, if you didn't know. This was season 1, and it is the closest. There's still a lot of differences, but it's the closest to the content in the book. Anthony and Collins have deviated so much that I'm scared for Benedict's because I loved his story in the book. But this was the closest to the Netflix adaptation, or the Netflix adaptation was the closest to the book here, and I was very, very happy about that. So yeah, there was my main Bridgerton read, and I am currently one whole chapter in on Eloise's story, To Sir Philip with Love. One whole chapter in, I am liking it. And it's in this like plastic cover because I carried it to campus before I moved out. But I am annotating it, of course. I only have one whole tab in it for now. There's so much left to read. But there's my Bridgerton update for you guys. Next is the S.E. Hinton stuff. I only annotated one of these books because that was Then This Is Now is set in literally the exact same place The Outsiders was set in, and Ponyboy, the main character of The Outsiders, makes a cameo in this, so I annotated some good thought-provoking stuff like I usually do in books, but also some overlaps that I might have noticed from The Outsiders, because the Shepherds also make an appearance. Yeah. But I really enjoyed this one. I almost cried at the end of this one. It was very good. I'll read the back for you guys. Does growing up have to mean growing apart? Since childhood, Brian and Mark have been as close as brothers. Now things are changing. Brian's growing up, spending a lot of time with girls and thinking about who he wants to be. Mark still lives for the thrill of the moment. The two are growing apart, but holding on, until Brian makes a shocking discovery about Mark. Now Brian faces a terrible decision, one that will change both of their lives forever. I will say that a shocking discovery does not happen until, I think, like chapter 9, and there are 11 chapters in this book. It was a very short read though, and I did really enjoy it, and I got really attached to the characters. And I read this one straight after rereading The Outsiders, because of course. Okay. Next S.E. Hinton book. The next one that I read was Rumblefish. Again, a very short read, but it took me so long to finish it. I am planning a video on my second channel once I finish the S.E. Hinton universe, where I talk about my personal thoughts on all of these books and everything. So I don't want to go too far into Rumblefish. I enjoyed it, but not as much as The Outsiders or That Was Then, and I also did not annotate this one. The back of this one, it says, Rusty James is the #1 tough guy among the junior high kids who hang out and shoot pool at Benny's. He's proud of keeping up his reputation, but what he wants most of all is to be just like his older brother, the motorcycle boy. Rusty James isn't book smart, he relies more on his fists than his brains. When he gets in over his head, the motorcycle boy is always there to bail him out. When he gets in over his head, the motorcycle boy is always there to bail him out. But one day his world falls apart and the motorcycle boy isn't around to pick up the pieces. What now? Reading the backs of these books, now that I know the content of it, it's not doing them justice. Because what happens to Motorcycle Boy, I won't spoil it, but it doesn't happen until literally the very last chapter. And there's no aftermath. We don't know much about what happens after. What happens to Motorcycle Boy? So, I think, what did I give this one? I think I gave this one a 3.5 on Goodreads. I think I gave this a 3.5, and this is now a 4, maybe. But my other current read is, aside from Taming the Star Runner, my last one in this series, Tex. I think I'm saving the good ones for last with this thing. I'm in the middle of chapter 2, which I normally don't do. I read like one chapter at a time, if not 2, depending how short the other one is. But these chapters in Tex are long. I'm also not annotating this one. But I am enjoying this one more than I enjoyed Rumblefish. So that gives me hope. Let's read the back of this one, I guess. Easygoing and reckless Tex likes everyone and everything, especially his horse. And Johnny Collins' blue-eyed sister Jamie. Life with his older brother Mason would be just about perfect if only Mace would stop complaining about Pop, who hasn't been home in 5 months. While Mason worries about paying the bills and getting a basketball scholarship, his ticket out of Oklahoma, Tex just seems to attract trouble. When everything seems to be falling apart, can he find a way to keep things together? One and a half chapters in, I think this synopsis is better than the other 2. Like, we establish some good points in this. Like, Mason's basketball scholarship. I already knew that because it's mentioned in, like, chapter 2. And of course there are movies that accompany all of these, aside from Taming the Star Runner, that I know of. So I think once I finish Tex, I'm going to sit down and watch all of these 2 movies. Both also star Matt Dillon as the main character. And that's another goal of mine for this year. If anyone wants like a Letterboxd review at the end of the year, if I can do one. My watch list is 90% just Matt Dillon movies right now. And I'm not complaining. I'm enjoying my time with the Matt Dillon films. That was then, This Is Now also has a film, and I think Emilio Estevez is in it. So yeah, at some point I need to like sit down and watch all of those movies. But next is the final section, the section that I had to read for my 19th century British novels class. 3 of them I don't have physical copies of yet. But I had to read a selection of some classic literature from the 1800s. mostly British authors, but the two that I have the physical copies of were Irish. And let me tell you, those Irish authors knew each other in whatever way you want to discern the relationship as. But the first one that I had to read back in, like, I think January or February was Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I read the ebook and an audiobook of it, like, simultaneously. I read the 1818 version, where Victor and Elizabeth were cousins. I enjoyed it to a degree. If I had the time to sit down and, like, let each chapter mellow, I probably would have liked it more. But I didn't have that. And also, it was very... I was not used to how Mary Shelley writes, her verbiage. I should have expected it. She was married to a poet. And they were a throuple with another poet, Lord Byron, if you want to believe that. I should have expected it. She was a very smart lady. I will give her that. But Victor was the main character for the most of it, and he was insufferable. I think I gave this a 3.5, but who knows, if I ever get the time to, like, sit down and reread it, I might bump it up to a 4, maybe. But that was my first one. The next one was Anne Bronte's The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. I think I gave this one a 4 just because I liked the happy ending. But of course, the main narrator, Gilbert, he's unreliable. He's a very, very unreliable man. I don't even know how to explain it. Like, I didn't explain Frankenstein because I feel like most people get the gist of it. And most people have never heard of, well, they've heard of Anne Bronte, but they don't know, like, her novels. She's the least famous Bronte sister. I enjoyed The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. Again, I want to reread it just so I can, like, let each chapter mellow and stuff. That's usually how I read my books. It was wild, man. The only way I know how to describe it is this mysterious woman coming to Wildfell Hall with her son, no husband in sight, and rumors start to fly. And then Gilbert gets her diary. Well, she gives him her diary, and it reveals all. And Gilbert is a wild character. Yeah, but this was a happy ending, which I enjoyed. But again, Gilbert is an unreliable narrator. But I gave it 4 stars. I liked it much better than Frankenstein. So, final book that I don't have a physical copy of is one that I've never heard of before. I've never even heard of this author, but it's been around since the 1860s and has never been out of print. And it is Lady Audley's Secret by, I think her name was Mary Elizabeth Braddon. I remember it was Braddon, her last name. I think it was Mary Elizabeth for the rest of her name. Again, completely wild. We read it serially because it was originally published in a magazine, which most stories were at that time, and that caused us to, like, read it slower than the rest of our books, and I think that made me enjoy it a lot more, because I think I gave this one a 4 star out of 5. And I enjoyed the ending. It was a happy ending for the most part. Basically there is this very beautiful, beautiful woman, and she marries a baronet, Mr. Audley, hence how she became Lady Audley. I guess his title is Sir Audley, not Mr. Audley, my bad. But she's just so beautiful and so innocent. She can never do so wrong. Well, I think our main character, Robert, he was cousins to Alicia, Sir Michael's only child and heir, Alicia. They were cousins. Robert was a barrister, and something happens to his friend. Coincidentally, in Audley Court, the last person to see his friend was Lady Audley. But there's a lot more to unpack. There's a lot of twists. But I enjoyed it. This one I did also really enjoy. Again, probably because I got to read it slower than the rest of these novels for the class. But I enjoyed it. Robert is a goober. I enjoyed him. I really enjoyed him, and I liked poking fun at him and his thoughts. Shout out to Robert Audley. But the second to last book I finally have an actual physical copy of. And this one was on my TBR for a hot minute. The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. The man, the myth himself. He wasn't a myth, but I wasn't planning on getting a physical copy of Dorian Gray because my professor had provided us an ebook link, a free ebook link, but I found this one for pretty cheap at a local bookstore, a very small local bookstore, so I just bought it. I started annotating it, but then I gave up and started reading the ebook instead. This is another one I want to reread just so I can finish the annotations. I don't remember what I gave this one actually. I might have given it 4. I enjoyed it, but the ending, I feel like you could tell how this was going to end from a mile away. Also, this version that I have, I think this was the original version, not the edited version after Oscar Wilde went to trial for sodomy. So there's some quite queer-coded things here, and it starts right off the bat. Some of these annotations are like the queer stuff in the first 2 chapters. But yeah, Oscar Wilde, wild man. I love him. He's great. I like his writing style. He's more of a poet than a novelist, though. But I'm not mad about this. I think I gave it like a 3.5 or like a 4-star. And again, this has been on my TBR for a hot minute, so finally read it. The final book is fully annotated, and the love of my life, my favorite from that class. And it's also by someone who might have had queer ties to Oscar Wilde. Bram Stoker's Dracula, also been on my TBR for a hot minute, considering I was raised by a vampire-loving mother. My oldest memory was me as a toddler sitting in my living room floor in front of the TV watching some kind of Dracula VHS. I literally am like, this past semester, the spring semester in college, I was in this class, the 19th century novel class, but I was also in a horror film class. So for 2 professors, I became the vampire scholar because I just knew so much about vampire. Surprisingly, I had never read Dracula before, but I am very happy that I did, and of course this one is annotated. I really wanted to annotate this one because for my analysis final for this class, I decided to do mine on the different sorts of desire in this novel, because we associate vampires with sex, sexual desire. Vampirism is a euphemism for sex. We all know that. It's in every single vampire media, books and film. But there's a lot more to this. In fact, my first point in my analysis was the consumerism, because this was written in the late 1890s. So the Industrial Revolution and consumerism, it had been popping off. So consumerism is very villainized, but I love this book so much. Also, shout out to my friend for giving me this copy to annotate. It's one of the British ones. She picked this up when she was studying abroad in London. It was printed in London, Bermondsey Street. But I love this book so much. I think I gave this a 4.5, maybe. I definitely want like a nicer looking copy of Dracula just to display. But I loved it so much. R.I.P. Quincy Morris. You would have loved Waffle House. Also, shout out to Mina Harker, my girl. Also, I cried with the end of Lucy's arc. Like, I did genuinely cry. And I'm not usually a crier with books. But Lucy, oh my god. Bram Stoker does not like women. That is a hill I will die on. Between his love for Walt Whitman and Oscar Wilde, his broken marriage with his wife, and look at how he treats his female characters. This man had a vendetta against women. But yeah, love Dracula so much. Definitely one of my, probably in my top 3 so far for this year. Loved it so much. But with that is currently all I have read up to this point. I might try to do a part 2 to this in December. We'll see. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I will have finished either my S.E. Hinton goal or my Bridgerton goal, if not both. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.